Today on Week in Review, Ellis Ross was keeping an eye on the implications of Bill C-5, a notable cancer fundraising event made a stop in Terrace, and a local theater in Terrace started a fundraising event of their own. Hello, I'm Cael Maslin, and thanks for joining us here on Week in Review, where we cover all of the news here in the Northwest from this past week. Skeena-Bulkley Valley MP Ellis Ross recently went to Parliament Hill, but before leaving, Ross said that he'd be keeping an eye on the implications of Bill C-5.
Will they use Bill C-5 to override environmental assessments? Will they do it to override provinces or First Nations interests or workers' interests? But also I'll be looking to see how does Canada, the Canadian government, fulfill their promise of becoming an energy superpower. I don't know how you do that, because right now you're sending 95% of your oil and gas to the United States at a discount. So if you're going to get off the dependence and selling your resources at a discount rate, you got to find other markets, and you've got to entertain the idea of oil and gas pipelines alongside your solar, your wind. I mean, I'm looking at the major projects they're listing out, and they're listing off projects that have been on the books for the last 10 years. It's nothing new. And no investor, like we checked the environmental assessment site for Canada, nobody has filed any applications for any new projects. Now maybe they're thinking that they'll file it with the new major projects office that they established. But that actually raises a whole pile of different questions. Like, how are Canadians supposed to feel at ease knowing that all these projects will be assessed to protect the environment and to be open and transparent and accountable, not only to Canadian citizens, but to taxpayers?
The issue of homelessness continues to spark conversation as local organizations in Terrace got ready to meet. CFTK-TV's Helen Asante shares more.
In the 1930s, they put money for the first time towards housing, and it was both to ease shortages and to promote job promotion. And then during the Second World War, they helped build new housing and repair housing for the returning vets. In the 70s and 80s, there was all kinds of different targets. So it was middle income buyers, it was low rental, low income renters. It was all kinds of different experiments, and many hundreds of thousands of homes were built in those decades. And then in 1990, 89, they start reducing. In 1995, they stopped contributing to housing programs.
There is a lot of burden placed on organizations like HSABC, Kermode, Kisan, other folks locally in the north. And well, what are you doing to solve homelessness? Well, it's not just us, it's something that we have to do together. And it requires commitment, it requires consistency, and it requires funding and changes to law. The question I often ask people is, how far away are you from not having adequate housing? Right? It's a lot closer than you think. And so I think the call to action really is, instead of complaining about, visibly unhoused folks, we should be complaining to the people who have the power to make the change.
So you have these brand new buildings being built. They have the prices high because we now have the school district, we have Northern Health, who are advertising to rent houses, buy houses, looking for housing for doctors, looking for housing for teachers. So that's who I feel is being targeted now for the higher rates in rent.
As conversation continues, Jamie points that support can be one size fits all.
They need to take a look at us as individual communities. Not all communities are the same. Not all communities have the same resources or assets. So where we're lacking, you go to a bigger city, there's more options. So we can't just generalize us as a whole. We need to take a little deeper look and look at individual communities, where they're at, meet them there.
Sarah says she's eager to visit Terrace.
It's a real privilege for HSABC to come and I'm really looking forward to being there. It is public registration. We do have some spots left. It's going to be a really amazing day. We have some incredible elders spending the day with us. We have the mobile response team provincially. We have lots of support. There's going to be incredible food by K5T and their training skills program. So Indigenous-led menu looks delicious. And it's going to be a good day of just connecting with one another.
Helena Santos, CFTK-TV News, Terrace.
BC cops and emergency service providers were crossing the Northwest last week, raising funds for cancer research in the annual Cops for Cancer fundraiser. We met up with the riders at their stop in Terrace. The Canadian Cancer Society is in the midst of running their annual Cops for Cancer Tour de North event, which is where police officers and other emergency service personnel go on a week-long cycling trip throughout northern BC.
We are riding this year we're going from Prince George all the way to Prince Rupert. We're cycling the whole way. We're raising money for Canadian Cancer Society for research for pediatric cancers and for sending kids to Camp Good Times.
Camp Good Times is a place where children who have been diagnosed with cancer can enjoy being a kid while still getting all of the medical attention they need, and their families can go with them as well. The trip these cyclists are on is about 850 kilometers long, and when they reached Terrace yesterday evening, they made it to their second-to-last stop before their final destination.
It's been great. We've had a lot of fun. We've been very welcomed in all the communities that we've been to so far. So we've had a lot of fun doing that. We've encountered some rough weather, some rain here and there, but we had some sunshine as well.
When the cyclists got to Terrace, they first stopped at Canadian Tire before making their way to United Rentals to fuel up at a barbecue after completing another leg of their journey. They're set to finally complete their tour sometime today when they finally make it to Prince Rupert. The ultimate goal for this tour in terms of fundraising is $250,000, and they have nearly reached that number, with their website most recently showing that they've raised a little over $234,150. The tour is set to go a mostly different route next year, as the cyclists will kick off their ride at Dawson Creek and conclude it at Williams Lake. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cael Maslin. One of British Columbia's longest-running theaters, the McCall Playhouse in Terrace, recently began fundraising to cover a major repair. It's called the Raise the Roof campaign. CFTK-TV's Helena Santos reports.
The historic building's roof needs major work, and without it, the theater says its future could be in jeopardy.
In December of 2022, I received a frantic series of text messages from our treasurer, Nancy Stone Archer, and then President Robin McLeod saying, hey, we've just received a phone call from one of our neighbors. Part of the roof of the McCall has blown off. And it was in a windstorm. It was miserable out. There was snow. It was really, really awful. And so Nancy and Robin came out, and they were actually up on the roof holding tarps, etc., trying to get enough of the roof repaired for us to kind of hobble along for another, well, here we are 2 years later, 2.5 years later. So we're still existing on the repairs that were done at that time, but we've known that we are on borrowed time with this roof. We're hoping to get the roof replaced sooner rather than later. So we've decided we need to be really hitting grant proposals and actively raising funds to get this roof done soon.
Through the Erase the Roof campaign, the Playhouse is calling on supporters to purchase memberships, a vital way to help fund both the roof replacement and ongoing maintenance.
But if we don't have active members, it looks like the club isn't as important to the community as maybe it is. So that's why buying a membership is super important. So if Terrace Little Theatre is important to you, and if what we do is important to you, on an individual level, one of the biggest things you can do for us is buy your membership. Yeah.
She adds they are also working on new initiatives to ensure the Playhouse remains a home for the arts for years to come.
We are now doing a building sustainability fund that we've just implemented for ourselves. So $1 off of every ticket that people buy when they come to see a show goes directly into our building sustainability fund. So we will be using that for doing any infrastructure or building upgrades.
For the community, the call to action is clear. This isn't just about fixing the roof, it's about preserving memories, culture, and the stage that has been bringing people together for decades. Helena Santos, CFTK-TV News, Terrace.
Up next, we hear from the BCGEU's president about their ongoing strike. Welcome back. The District of Kitimat notified their public that they are placing their water system under a water quality advisory due to elevated turbidity levels. While the advisory is in effect, Northern Health is recommending that elderly people, kids, pregnant women, and people with weaker immune systems boil their water. Now we will hear from the president of the BCGEU about how the union's ongoing strike has been progressing to this point. The BC General Employees Union has been on strike for close to 4 weeks now, and it has resulted in over 8,500 public sector workers making up a total of 19 picket lines across BC. And while it has been mentioned before, BCGEU President Paul Finch has publicly reiterated why exactly this strike is happening.
There's many drivers of that. One of the main ones, of course, is that civil servants over the course of our last 3 years of our contract fell behind inflation, but also the last 10 years of our contract, we fell behind inflation. But worse than that, and I think this is a better measure than inflation, the average wage in BC has been going up much higher than inflation. And so over that 10-year period, we lost over 12% to the average wage in BC. And so today in British Columbia, civil servants make 2.7% less than the average wage of British Columbians as a whole.
While no part of the province could avoid these strikes' effects forever, Finch also went on to specify how northwestern BC was being affected by the strike.
Right now in the Northwest, we have people on strike predominantly who are in an environment and finance and resource ministry approvals operations. That's kind of the bulk of the people that are on strike right now. Is environment and resource approval operations.
Finch then confirmed that the two sides were not at the negotiating table at the time, and he wasn't sure when that fact might change, since another point of their job action is to try and get the government to negotiate with them.
The fact that the price of wages across the whole province, especially in the private sector, have gone up dramatically, and government has been slow to follow suit over the last decade, I think that we're now at an inflection point where it's clear that this is no longer tenable. And that's why we're on strike for fair wages.
Finch last stated that the BCGEU doesn't think a new deal would have a major impact on BC's deficit budget, and that they strongly believe the government has the room to reach a fair deal with them. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cael Maslin. A new emergency department at the Prince Rupert Regional Hospital is now open. The province said it includes a new registration area and main lobby, a larger triage and trauma area, and improved acuity unity rooms, which provide enhanced infection prevention control measures and better patient privacy. Funding for the upgraded emergency department includes $9.9 million from the province and $6.6 million from the Northwest Regional Hospital District. They say the joint $16.5 million investment reflects a unified approach to meeting the community's growing need for high-quality, accessible emergency services. The emergency department at the Prince Rupert Hospital serves an average of 43 patients a day, with approximately 16,000 visits per year. It's been plagued with closures in recent years, causing serious service disruptions to the communities of Prince Rupert, Port Edward, four coastal Tsimshian communities, and Haida Gwaii. The province said the upgrades to the emergency department at the Prince Rupert Regional Hospital are part of the government's work to improve and expand access to healthcare infrastructure in communities throughout BC. One of Canada's main rail companies recently collaborated with a northwestern BC city to show people ways that they can remain safe whenever they're near rail lines. CN Rail has spent the past few days promoting this ongoing week as Rail Safety Week, an annual event held in September that is dedicated to reminding the general public how important rail safety is, in addition to pointing out the risks in trespassing in rail yards and not following rail crossing signs. The rail company has teamed up with many communities all over Canada for this week, with the city of Terrace being included in that group as well, which makes sense considering how the city's main rail line is set up.
Obviously, when we talk about rail safety, the concern of the rail yard being in the middle of our town is always top of mind. We've got the one overpass and we've got the level crossing, and we've had some fatalities over the years of people crossing through the yard. So we're always asking CN to do more and do better and make sure that people are safe when it comes to their trains.
Terrace Mayor Sean Bouitosh also had some potential ideas on what CN Rail could do in order to improve safety measures around rails in the community.
I would hope that CN would work with higher levels of government and work on ways to increase the ability for people to cross the tracks. I think on a big wish is a second overpass in our community at some point, but I think pedestrian crossings in other locations than just the one we have, and at least beefing up the one we have. So it would be nice if both the province, CN, and maybe the federal government work together in making our community safer that way.
But even with those potential improvements, practicing ways to stay safe when going by train tracks, like not getting unnecessarily close to any tracks or crossings, listening for potentially approaching trains, and looking both ways before going through a crossing are still important. Anyone who notices an unsafe situation near a railroad is asked to call the CN police phone number at 1-800-465-9239. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cael Maslin. After the break, the Cael Hospital's parking lot is now open. Welcome back. The Cael Regional Hospital's parking lot opened earlier this week in Terrace. According to the communications advisor of Northern Health, there will be 313 free parking spaces available for patients, visitors, and staff. Northern Health says they have no plans to bring paid parking to the Cael Regional Hospital at this time. The temporary gravel parking area will serve as overflow hospital parking. New upgrades are also being planned for both Lake Else Lake Park and the Seven Sisters Park. At Lake Else Lake Park, accessible parking stalls will be constructed along with a pathway and accessible mat to improve access to the beach. Some picnic tables will be replaced with accessible tables, and the toilet building will be upgraded to improve accessibility. The province says upgrades to the access trail between the group campsite and the main campground are also part of the $200,000 project scheduled to begin this winter. The upgrades are among several improvements during the past 3 years. In 2023, 2 kilometers of the Twin Spruce Trail in Lake Else Lake Park were upgraded to be more accessible and resilient to the weather. Last year, 8 new campsites were added to the Furlong Bay Campground, along with other upgrades as part of the $1.8 million project. And as for the Seven Sisters Park, the first kilometer of the 3-kilometer Watson Lakes Trail is being widened, and the grade is being reduced to make it easier for hiking. The $400,000 project also includes new gravel tent pads, a backcountry toilet, a bear cache, and picnic tables at the first camping area located approximately 1 kilometer from the trailhead. In addition, the parking lot is being expanded with 13 new spaces. A pair of representatives from organizations in Kitimat recently spoke about their community's homelessness situation and the thing that they're trying to do in order to help fix it. The emergence of a tent encampment in Kitimat behind the city council chambers has sparked more conversations about homelessness in the district. While the district does have a temporary shelter available during the winter between November 1st and March 31st, that leaves unhoused people in the area mostly on their own the rest of the year. But there still are some means for people struggling to find a place to get a bit of a reprieve.
Okay, so the Kitimat Community Development Center and Hamilton Status of Women both offer homeless prevention programs. So the homeless prevention program is aimed at stopping homelessness before someone becomes homeless. And so we offer a rent subsidy program. The program also offers different funding for individuals. So that program can subsidize, say, the cost of like a calling card, or it can pay for transportation. And we also offer support in finding landlords in the community that are offering rent at affordable costs. And then we look at coaching and supporting individuals to look at their budgets and make different decisions that will help them from becoming homeless.
The main difference between TSW and KCDC's homeless prevention programs is that TSW is mandated to serve a majority of women and children.
Both the Kitimat Development Center and Tamatic Status of Women have some other means of fighting homelessness, like housing supports, their own seasonal/extreme weather shelters, and a new building project that TSW is currently working on. Despite their efforts, the existence of the encampment shows that those measures still aren't enough, and the organizations have teamed up to try and find other means of homelessness prevention.
Both TSW and KCDC have spoken to council on their own as well as together. We did a joint presentation at a council meeting. We've had discussions with district staff about different resolutions we can think of. Council has been advocating for a year-round shelter now publicly for a few years. We've both sent support letters to the District of Kitimat just highlighting the need that were presented at council, and we've also sent letters to the housing minister.
The representatives from both organizations said the shortage of affordable housing and rising rental costs were some of the biggest reasons that Kitimat's homelessness situation is the way it is. And the next closest municipality with a year-round shelter and similar supportive housing options is Terrace, a place that's around 45 minutes away from Kitimat by vehicle, and it's not always easy to get there via public transit either. But both organizations aren't giving up on trying to secure a year-round shelter that is both accessible for people with mobility issues and able to accommodate everyone. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cael Maslin. Still to come, some Terrace residents are concerned about benches being removed from bus stops. Welcome back. Some residents in Terrace raised concerns about benches being removed from bus stops. Our cameras went to look at a few of the locations, with CFTK-TV's Helen Asante once again reporting.
While some benches have been removed, new ones have already been installed in certain spots. In a statement, the city explained that concrete parts are being laid to prepare for installations and that the work is ongoing. Officials say they hope to add more benches this year, depending on the funding available for the next phase. For now, commuters may notice a mix. Some bus stops with benches in place and others still waiting for upgrades. CFTK-TV News, Helen Asante.
Northern Health and the First Nations Health Authority have released a joint statement that says a drug alert is being issued for the entirety of the northern region. The alert has been put into place because a purple paste that's been sold as down has been linked to multiple overdose events, and it's tested positive for benzos-fentanyl and methylphenidine. The alert is set to expire on October 7th, and tips on safe use are available on Northern Health's website. The Prince Rupert Port Authority has announced that they have donated $108,000 through their Community Investment Fund to the new Visiting Specialist Clinic at the Prince Rupert Regional Hospital, and thanks to those funds, the clinic is now going to be able to give North Coast residents more access to specialized health care. The clinic has hired 20 specialists that are offering services in the likes of cardiology, neurology, pediatrics, as well as ears, nose, and throat. That wraps up this week's edition of Week in Review. Make sure to tune in to our regular newscast on Monday at 5, 6, 6:30, and 11 o'clock here on CFTK-TV. Thank you for tuning in, and have a good weekend.